I think you're seeing a common thread throughout our presentations today. And, one of the things I mentioned earlier is just the fact that this room is full of really supportive, encouraging, strong individuals that are here to build each other up. So I hope you're feeling that. And one of the topic that we really thought is we find passionately for ourselves is about authenticity, and making sure that we're bringing ourselves to the table. So I was able to gather these amazing women. So we have Samira, Nikki, and Tara. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Being authentic to really who we are and bringing ourselves truly to the table is really critical in making sure that we are building up an environment and a culture that everyone feels comfortable and welcome to continue to innovate and be who they are themselves. So ultimately, we want to make sure that we keep this very conversational and relaxed. So Samira, I wanted to go ahead and start with you. Okay. So can you share with us really a personal experience where being your authentic self had a positive impact for you professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. Is the audio okay back there? We sound okay? All right, it's just up here. We got a little bit of a... so I think to answer that question, I'll give you a little bit of context. I have historically been the only in most of the rooms that I've been in, and just quickly raise your hands. Have you ever been the only in the room, the only woman, millennial, person of color, right? It's uncomfortable. And as we sit in these positions of privilege, right? We have privilege because we're able to be connected and we have platforms. It's super important to be able to pay it forward so that the next generation isn't the only and we're not the last to pull them forward. So with that in mind, I've always, I haven't always, but more recently in my career, I've really embraced my authenticity. And I try to bring the fullness of who I am to work. And I'm lucky to see some of my colleagues sitting here, and hopefully they can vouch that I try to bring the full Samira to play. And that really became apparent for me when I gave birth to my first child. So when I was at a different technology company at the time, I gave birth. I came back from maternity leave after 3 months, and we didn't have appropriate areas for breastfeeding, and I was really adamant that I was going to breastfeed for a full year. And I remember having to sneak off to pump in, makeshift mothers' rooms and office buildings, and it came to a head for me when I was at NAB, and I had to pump in a wiring closet on the show floor. Super sanitary. And I just remembered feeling super deflated. And then fast forward, I came to Amazon. I got pregnant again. I gave birth to my second child. At that point, I was a lot more confident, and I was in a position of even more authority. I was in an executive position, and I went out on maternity leave, and I realized that we had an antiquated policy where our stocks would freeze while we were on parental leave. And I came back and I was like, this wasn't right. This wasn't fair. And I'm super privileged, again, to be in a dual income household and be in a powerful position, quote unquote. And I'm dealing with this. What's happening to that individual contributor or that person who doesn't have that type of platform or power or doesn't have a dual income household? What happens to them? So I remember taking that story and I banded with a couple other women and we went back to some of the executives within Amazon. We positioned that the policy was not the right one, and they changed it like that, right? So now if you come and work at Amazon, we've got a great parental leave policy. But the point is that if I wasn't authentic and I didn't own that I was a mother and I was struggling with these things and I needed a proper place to breastfeed, et cetera, then we wouldn't have been able to change that policy. And then I didn't give permission for other young women, right, to do the same. So I think that was a really powerful instance where using my authenticity helped not only myself, but others.
And also to really put yourself out there as someone to look up to, so that the other women around you see that as amazing role model and that they feel empowered to be able to make change themselves.
I hope so. I mean, this morning, one of the SAs, a solution architects from the team, emailed me and said, "Hey, Samira, what's that book about potty training that, I was like, oh, read this, so hopefully people feel seen and you can be all of these things at work by being real about it.
Tara, what advice would you give to young women entering the industry who may feel pressured to conform?
Well, I hope that people like Samira and all of us here have helped pave the way a bit, but we still have a long way to go. I think there's a lot, and especially in tech and in gaming where I work, there's a lot of room to go as far as being the only in the room. But I would say being your authentic self is, say what you mean what you say, and don't be afraid to say it. I think diverse perspectives are needed, and they're important when you're looking at how things work in a workplace or how to brainstorm. Everyone has ideas, and it's easy when you're new or when you're the only to sit and let things happen, right? Just you don't want to be that one to raise your hand because you don't want to be looked at. You don't want to be different, but it's okay to do that, and it's welcome. If you don't start, then it'll be that much harder to catch up.
So really encouraging people to use their voice and have that courage to speak up.
Definitely. I think it's hard to do that, and I think maybe you can find someone in your organization or find a mentor somewhere to help you get that courage. I know it's difficult at first because you feel like maybe you're not enough, or I don't have enough experience. I couldn't possibly say what my great big idea. But I think for me, and in the places where I work and where I work now, it doesn't matter whether you are an intern or whether you are a vice president. If you have a great idea, it makes the company better, and that's a culture that we try to create where I work. And I think, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can help drive that culture. Not everybody is in that position, but we need to create that. I think in our company, we've created employee resource groups, and we've got something called Raise Your Game, and it's about women, and we're finding each other and talking to each other and mentoring each other. So I think that's, find people inside your organization or in your industry, right, that can help you find that courage.
That's wonderful. Amazing. So one of the topics that we wanted to touch on today was really about earning trust. So Nikki, what strategies have you used to build trust and credibility while still being your authentic self?
Sure. I think we're all just humans, trying to human out here, right? Doesn't matter what industry we're in, what role we have. Really, I think the fabric is connectedness, and we're just trying to connect to one another. And so I always try to show up and be the person that makes other people feel comfortable to be themselves, because, I would say my career really started kind of on an upward trajectory once I stopped being like all the guys in the room.
Plus one.
Yeah. So I just, once I stopped giving a shit about that, can I say that? I think I started to really progress in my career because people were drawn to, so the law of attraction, I say this all the time, but people are drawn to people who are authentic. And I know for myself, when I make friends at work or when I feel connected to people at work, I can easily spot people who aren't authentic, and it puts me off guard, and it makes me really uncomfortable, and I feel very guarded around those type of people, and I don't think I show up as my best self because there's some ulterior motive. And so, I like to use humor. I work with all men. I inherited a team of all men. I'm currently building another team of not all men.
Good job.
But I think, to connect, because we're not one of the guys. Who wants to be one of the guys? We are different. And so to connect to my male peers, because I am the only woman on the sales leadership team, to date, we're going to change that at Fortinet. I think I've had to use humor. That's been my connective tissue to people, is just trying to kind of lighten the mood sometimes, trying to connect with people through humor and just making people feel comfortable. And I think that's helped me not only with my male counterparts, but also the women. I want them to feel like they have someone I didn't have. I've only had male mentors. I didn't have women in my journey, in my career, that really lifted me up. There weren't any. And so it just wasn't an option. So I want to be that person to other people in the company.
I love that. It really feels like it's like establishing a positive, strong culture that people want to grow. Did you want to add?
Well, I was just going to say that the notion of mentorship, I think, is an important one. And when we were all on a prep call on Friday, and we were riffing back and forth. But I heard two things this year that have had real shifts in the way that I look at being able to sponsor and ally effectively for women. One is this notion of male mentors. And historically, I always had male mentors, and we've always had them around us. I'd like to move away from that, and the CIO at Sky actually said this, Gabriella Vaca, so she gets the credit for this, or if you don't like it, you can blame her. But she was just basically saying, like, that's not what we need anymore. What we need from men is allyship and sponsorship. We need allyship so that they can watch our backs in those rooms when we are the only, right? And when we're not in the room, we want their sponsorship because they're the ones that are in the position of authority and power, and they're the ones that are going to be able to position us when we're not in the room to be able to seat ourselves or our colleagues. So this notion of allyship and sponsorship resonated with me, and leave the mentorship to other people like you. So to be able to learn how to be authentic as an authentic, woman leader, it would be great to have other women to emulate and to engage with. And I think that's really powerful because, like Nikki, I think I spent so much of my early career trying to emulate some of these more masculine qualities that were not necessarily me, right? And once I freed myself of that and I allowed myself to just be myself, my foundation became sturdy, and then I was able to have the level of confidence I needed to be able to do the job. And I was a hell of a lot less worried about finding, commonality of cause, or it just didn't matter anymore. I wasn't trying to emulate. I was just okay being me.
I just wanted to add, I was at a different tech company where I was the only, well, actually there was two of us. And we had this executive, group, and it was a lot of going out to golf and doing whiskey tasting and all these fun things. And I'm like, that's great, I don't golf. You can drive the cart. No, I don't want to drive the cart. So what we actually did, right? I don't want to drive the cart. I'll drink wine with you, but anyway, what we did is we did like a reverse mentorship where we were the ones, we were going to teach the men, okay, this is how you work with us. This is how, think about it. You guys want to go golfing. That's awesome. We want to be social together. It doesn't have to be golfing. I'm not saying we got to go do massage day, but we can do something else where we can all, be on the same level playing field. And so we started this program, and instead of teaching the women how to be authentic, it was the men leaders that brought in, how do you work with women in the workplace and work together? And it was great to kind of flip the script and help people. And a lot of the men just didn't realize it, right? Because that's the way life is. You go golfing, you drink whiskey, you do what, it never even occurred to them. And it really made a material change. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I think that the other point of that, too, is this notion that, which I think is an antiquated notion, is that women are the ones that are in need of these leadership development programs. Ladies, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we do a hell of a lot. We got a lot of multidimensional angles to us. So I think the notion is it should be around development programs for the people, not necessarily for women. And we should be a lot more gender agnostic around that and focus on programs like this, right, that build community, that allow women to come together and find that support system. That's really important. But this notion that we need special training to figure out how to show up in the workplace, are you serious? It's ridiculous.
We've been here.
It makes you feel this small, right? This small.
Right.
So
If
I'll
it helps,
stop.
Sunny, at some point in my career, I did bring all my male colleagues for manis and petties, so I didn't have to go golfing.
I've done the same thing. And a massage day sounds amazing. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I stand corrected on massage day then, fine. We can all get massages.
So Tara, could you talk a little bit about how, encouraging authenticity across these organizations and how it really impacts the cultures?
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts with the leadership. I'm really lucky where I am now. We have a lot of work to do, but we have our company values, and our value is, for us, we're gaming. So gaming is for everyone, but our company has to reflect that too. It can't just be something we say to our customers. It has to be something that we live and breathe. Fortunately, in my position, I'm a chief people officer. I get the opportunity to help build that culture, but it takes everybody to do that. And I think having a culture of transparency and allowing people to show up however they are. And embracing that, rewarding it, recognizing it really starts to build that psychological safety that you need to feel like you can be who you are, you can contribute, you can, move fast and not worry about failing because it's okay. You've got to create that culture, but it does start from what are your company values? Are you living your company values? And are you recognizing and rewarding people for behaving in that way?
Establishing a culture where people feel safe, I think, is just hugely critical to really driving this concept forward, because if someone doesn't feel safe in the space that is around them, then they're going to continue to emulate those who they see. And
Right.
they assume that the like-minded folks is where they need to fit in. So making sure that people feel safe to be authentically who they are, I think, is really important. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we touch on some points that allow everyone to learn. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some setbacks and failures, but to give us a point of really focusing on the positive and where we take it, because we don't want to repeat any potential issues in the past, but we want to make sure that we make change and do things differently going forward. So, Nikki, can you share a personal story of a setback or failure and how your authentic leadership style really helped you overcome it?
Yeah, I think just kind of growing up in this industry, in the tech space, of being the only woman, when another woman would come to the team or the table, I think I spent probably the first 15 years feeling like there was competition there. And I don't know if that's just me. I feel like the system was set up for that. I think I was pitted against some of my female counterparts at times, and it felt like there was only space for one of us at the table. And I fumbled. I mean, I don't think I always handled it well. And I'm a pretty self-reflective person, believe in therapy. I think, over the years, and hitting 40 too, right? Like 40 does something where you go, why did I behave like that? And also, why am I, trying to be something that I'm not? So I think hitting 40, just growing up, it just made me realize, like, it's not a pie, right? Like the saying, like, it's not a pie. There is room for everyone. And as a part of that, I've just really tried to correct the mistakes of my past in trying to be very inclusive of women. And that's helped me along the way, because there's just no stress in who's on your team. You're always attracting the best if you're open to it, right? And I think the reason that I was that way with other women is because in the tech space, the women have to work so hard to get there. And so they are usually one of the best, or at least the teams I've been on. They've been in the top 10% of the teams that I've been on from a sales perspective, because they have to work so damn hard to stay. And so, I think the positive, I'm not like this now, so I'm, not competitive with my female counterparts, although I don't have a lot of them. So I do realize I don't have a lot of competition where I sit. But I am certainly trying to build a team of humans, right? Like, it's not going to be all women, because, as much as that would be amazing, I don't have resumes of all women. I'm trying to build a team of humans with my SASE team right now, where we all lift each other up, and we are only, as strong as, we are strong together, not as individuals. And so, I think I also just think we have to be authentic and allow people to fail, right, and to take risks. And the boss that I have now, he's our SVP of sales for Fortinet. I've failed, and he'll call me out on it, and I'm like, yeah, all right, but we move on. And that's been very important to me, because I think with being authentic, you will mess up, you will take some risks, and you have to give people the space to do that, so that we innovate and we change a culture, and we don't become stagnant. So that's kind of where I'd say my biggest failures over my career have been, is just kind of feeling competitive with my female counterparts. And, but We grow.
Did you want to add?
I can add to that. I love what you're saying. I'm just thinking, or you wanted to add to, right? I think that's right. And I think for me, like the authentic, I'm thinking about this, the setback or failure, but mine was being afraid to be honest. Like you're like, oh, your boss would say, oh my gosh, did you get that done? You're like, yes, I'm on it. You know, this morning I got something from my boss. How are we doing on the such and such deck? And I was like, I'll get to it this weekend. It's a whole different thing. I'm not afraid anymore because I can be honest with who I am and what I'm doing. And he's laughing at me right now. I will get it done this weekend, I promise. But being able to say and be comfortable in who you are and know that you can be honest and you can own things. And if you're not perfect, it's okay. And it's actually better to just be able to own. I didn't know this earlier on in my career, right? Because of that competition. And you're like, I've got to be as good as everyone next to me. But if you're not, it's okay. You can say, listen, I'll get back to you. I don't know the answer to that, or I'll get to it this weekend, and I promise, I really will get to it this weekend. It's okay. So that, to me, that was a learning. That did set me back early.
I'd add just a couple points, because I think that was all very well said. The first is being able to be vocally self-critical, I think is a real opportunity to build trust. Hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I was too reactionary. I probably should have slept on that email before I hit send, right? I think all of us have had those moments, but I think being able to own it
100%.
and own it quickly is a real sign of maturity and earns trust with your colleagues. As is sharing stories of where you failed, and I failed so many times. We can talk about that later. But so that's one. The second is I think that there's real merit to this notion that we've never lived through this period before. That might sound obvious, and I'm a little bit of a yogi, but all there is this present, this moment, right? But so much is changing around us, from the pace of technology to the needs of the consumers that we serve to the way in which we're expected to engage. If you think back to our parents' generation, they were never consistently always connected, right? The expectations of a response or having something done at the pace in which we're doing it now, and to still maintain some level of physical fitness and maybe have a personal life. These are really big expectations that we've put on ourselves. So I think acknowledging that it's never been done before is okay, and recognizing that we need to have boundaries is okay. And I think if you are working for a team and a leader who can't accept the fact that, hey, I need to take an hour for myself, or I need to shut down for the weekend, or I'm sorry, I can't make that call at 7 a.m. because I need to get my kids ready to go to school. If you're working for a leader that can't accept that, maybe you don't want to work for that leader.
Amen.
Right? So be okay with creating those boundaries, and then be proud of yourself and give yourself space that, hey, we're literally figuring this out as we go, and that's okay too.
Perfect. So I'm watching Guy frantically set up pizzas, and I realize that we are standing between each of you and some New York style pizzas.
There's only one New York style pizza, and it's in New York. So yeah.
But Greco's may want to dispute it.
As a New Yorker, we're going to check it out.
Yeah, there you go. Let me know. So we'll go ahead and start to close it out. Ultimately, I think you're definitely seeing a common thread across this morning, and I think it'll continue on. But my final question is, because I want everyone to leave here with thoughts about how we can build this community stronger and not work against each other. So I think everyone who's come here today and is in this room today is committed to building out this foundation and supporting everyone around us. So I'd love to hear from each of you just some specific tactics of what you think we can each do to uplift each other, and encourage everyone to be there, to be real, to be who they truly are authentically.
So in terms of key takeaways plus the authentic, I'd leave you with 3 Ps. Think of your privilege, the power that comes from it, and the platform that you have. Everybody in this room inherently has a combination of those 3 things just based off of where you woke up this morning. There's so much happening around the world. We are all so incredibly fortunate to have the option to even sit in a room like this, right? So ground yourself on that and the power that comes from being able to cultivate connection. And then think about how you can pay it forward by leveraging your platforms. Like maybe that's your social networks. Maybe you're super active on LinkedIn, or you're hyper connected in this community with, and you're in a position to be able to pay it forward and nominate a colleague or a peer for a position, or sponsor them when they're not in the room. Or you're sitting in a meeting and you hear one of your colleagues speaking and you amplify their idea because someone didn't pick it up, or you amplify your colleague when they're not in the room for another position. These are ways that you can leverage your platform, right, to move the ball forward in a significant way. And the other thing I would say is around like recruitment and so some of what I just talked about is around retention of colleagues and women. The other thing is around like recruitment. And so one of the things that I like to think about is how you can be in a position to be able to call out when you see like inequities in interview constructs, or if you know a role is open, are you letting the hiring manager know that you have colleagues or friends, right? So I give you those examples because I think those are tangible ways that everybody in this room can contribute to the cause and help make it better for that next generation. And I would just encourage you, again, the moment you stop, the moment that you ground yourself in who you are is the moment that you are able to stop giving away your power and your energy by trying to assimilate. And there's something so powerful in that and very, very liberating.
That is hard to follow. But I will say, for me, I think everyone needs to have what I call their personal board of directors, right? So that's your crew, your inner circle of people that you can go to and ask questions or bounce ideas off of, or if you're having a rough day, or you need advice on how to handle a certain situation, finding those people. They can be mentors, they can be peers, they can be, folks that you've never met before that are online. They can be people in an organization like With. But to have that you can go to, that you can speak with, that you can bounce ideas off of. And then I would say, once you have your personal board of directors and you're comfortable, be someone else's board of directors too, and help them and advise them. I think us being a collective together is the only way that we can really forge change if we're all doing it together. It's not just an effort of one person.
All right, well, I don't know how to follow either one of you, but the thing that I think we can give people is time, right? And that's the one thing that a lot of us don't have, but I think even just the teams that I've built, the one thing I think I see frustrating for my team is if I cancel a meeting, like the 30-minute one-on-one weekly meeting. It's so valuable to team members to get your time, even if it's for 30 minutes. And that, when we walk out of here today, do you want it to be a year before you talk to everyone again, right? You have to give people time. And I just think it's such a limited resource, obviously, but just making time for people, I think, is so underrated, because I appreciate it. I mean, I get 30 minutes a week with my boss, and he has 2,500 people in his organization, but I still appreciate it. And he doesn't cancel, He'll reschedule, but he doesn't cancel. So that's what I would take away.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll toss it over to Guy to give us instructions.
First of all, Christina, amazing panel. Samira, Tara, Nikki, amazing. That was so great. And like the 1-2 punch of the panel before you and this one, that's like a power hour for self. I love it.